Free pharmacy. And then I'll come back and actually maybe even if we were just sort of catch up something like 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
How are you?
I'm alright, how are you?
I'm hanging in there.
I'm
doing good.
surviving.
Grab a seat.
Yeah, any in particular? Are these
Middle one, I think, is the
the hot seat.
the one with the chemicals laced onto it.
Yeah.
I think Lucy's just going to grab us a coffee.
What sort of coffee do you want?
Just with milk, regular with milk, please.
Normal coffee with milk. Normal coffee with milk.
Oh.
So how are you getting on?
Alright. When did I see you guys last?
About 2 or 3 weeks ago we were here, were we, for
About
the
that,
day?
yeah.
So, got to change seats, yeah.
Have you clicked play?
Yeah, so
Right.
we better ask for some permission though. Are you okay if we video this?
You can go for it.
Yeah.
I might turn into my kids though. That's the real.
That's all right. It's a
real
bit of an
danger.
it's a bit of an experiment.
Okay.
And we won't share this with anyone without first coming back to you and showing you what
Yeah,
potentially we might
that's
share.
fine. That's fine. I'll try and forget it. It's like when my kids will be doing something. As soon as I get the camera out, they stop what they're doing. It's like,
My kids don't even need to. They get my phone and make their own videos,
yeah,
which are sometimes a bit horrific.
yeah. I've got a few of those.
Right.
Yep.
So we actually just spent the last hour with Adrian having a walk around.
Yeah.
So we have a bit of a better idea now what the test is all about. We've seen the L Bay, is it called the SGT 400 in? The
Yeah.
new one?
Yeah. We have to go upstairs in the control room.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we actually had a walk around the machine and then we went upstairs. It was good. So we have a sense of what
Yeah.
customers.
It was interesting for me as well. Even I don't really know. I'm not an engineer. I don't have any other kind of knowledge. But it was interesting to see it all and having kind of seen snippets of it in the workshop and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's good.
Right. Should we close the door or are we waiting for coffee?
Oh, well, Adrian's coming with coffee. Yeah.
Oh, is he? All right.
So that's what he said
Relax.
anyway.
Okay. We have about half an hour, I think, or maybe slightly less, 25 minutes, and then Adrian's coming back. So what we wanted to do was kind of just touch down and probably go through a process of just remembering back about the day before Christmas, what your experiment was about, kind of you telling the story of what it was like after that when you tried to do the experiment. And I know we've kind of had that discussion the last time a bit.
Yeah.
And I think the last time when we were with you, the story wasn't finished. There was a bit of frustration, and it'd be interesting to hear what happened afterwards.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So I think there's a part of the discussion around remembering that story.
Thank you.
Thanks.
It's a bit like
It's
coffee.
like Starbucks or something, isn't it?
All right.
So there's a bit about this, the initial part, probably 10 or 15 minutes, which is about kind of just reflecting back on what's happened in the last couple of months. And then there's a bit we thought would be interesting to talk about is what did we then learn about what it takes to try and change something around here?
Mm-hmm.
What were the things that either enabled the change to happen or limited the changes that could happen? So the learning is, I suppose, important for us to try and uncover a little bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm looking up here. We made some notes this
Okay,
morning
okay.
on the board. That's why you'll see me looking up. So I think for this next 20 minutes, what we'll try and do is be kind of inquirers with you to try and prompt you into telling the story and the information you have, rather than us trying to explain it or make sense of it directly, but just to try and help get it out, if you like. The purpose is reflection and learning. That's basically what we're trying to do, because we're in a cycle that we refer to as the called learning cycle, which is around action, experience, reflection, and learning. Now, that's essentially what called. Who was a guy who thought about how do people and organizations learn how to change, and he identified those kind of 4 stages. So the action and experience have kind of happened to some extent already. Now this is about reflection and learning, if that makes sense. And like I said, we we're trying to doing a bit of an experiment ourselves around some videoing, but we'll just try to ignore that
Yeah.
stuff, right? I think it's the best way.
It's
to
as
do it.
much
I
uncomfortable.
was doing
for
alright
us
to
as it
remind
is.
you.
Yeah.
Sitting slightly.
I think what often happens for me is in this sort of learning cycle is, especially in companies like Siemens and other companies either, you often kind of don't do the reflection and the learning part. You kind of just do something, it either works or doesn't, and then you kind of go back and try something else, or you don't really often kind of think about what it took. And I don't just mean the kind of tools and stuff, what it took about you and people around you and stuff to actually get that to a certain stage. So it'd be interesting to kind of delve into that a little bit.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see it from this side of view in terms of the appreciative inquiry, because we've got the more traditional reactive style. We've got a couple of methods that we use here, depending on the complexity. So one is plan, do, check, adjust. So you've got the check and adjust is similar to the, and then there's an 8D process that we use, which has got 9 steps, obviously. But the last 2 stages of that are very similar, just sort of reflect and adjust.
Okay.
So yeah, it'd be interesting to see it from this side.
Yeah.
Good. So, if you think back to whatever it was, November, I guess, was your first awareness of this activity an invitation to the drill hall? Was that where it started?
Yeah.
Right. And how was that framed or explained, or what was the nature of it?
There were some links to what appreciative inquiry was,
Okay.
because it was something that I hadn't heard of before. But it was very broad based, and it was how do we improve the customer witness experience, and I think it got even broader than that in terms of stuff we've been doing applies to the works test, so before the customer gets involved. But it just started off as a broad how do we improve it, and this subject that I'd never heard of before. So.
And what did you expect when you saw that? What did you sort of why did you go? You know what I mean?
I went. There's 2 answers to this. One is because I was supposed to, but I was genuinely interested at looking at a different approach, because I've worked for the company for 17 years and I've been dealing specifically with test issues for 10. And you get certain frustrations about, I mean, we deal with very technical issues, and it's very frustrating when you can't do that technical work because paperwork's not in place, or things that we consider to be, they should just be normal, they shouldn't be happening all the time. And Adrian was new to the role as well. He's got a reputation for getting on with stuff. So I did, you go to some meetings and you think, okay, I'll turn up to this and show my face and but this was more, there was a feel with a new guy coming in, a new process, that maybe it was a good opportunity to actually make a real change.
Okay. Good. And when you say you were supposed to go, I guess because somebody selected you, someone somewhere along this process had said, you're someone who should be at this, and that was probably Adrian.
Yep.
Right, okay.
Yep. I don't think I'd really spoken with Adrian a great deal before that. He was obviously coming in and feeling his way around the job, what it entailed, and he'd obviously spoken with other guys in the test room and said, okay, who do we need for this? There's probably a chance that the department I work in, manufacturing support, are the cause of some delays.
Yeah.
So anyone who could contribute was brought along. There were quite a good number of people there, weren't there?
Yeah. There was about 20 or so, wasn't there?
Yeah, I think so. So you were saying Adrian was relatively new, but I guess you had probably quite good relationships, or you knew quite well most of the people in the room that day.
Yeah, very well.
Right, okay. And you had a level, I think what I heard you say was you had an awareness that you played a part in this process, and there were frustrations. You had an energy to try and change things even before this ever came along, and you maybe saw this as a vehicle or a mechanism with Adrian, the process, and maybe we can actually do something here that we know has to shift, or we've known for some time.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's very fair.
And then the day itself, what do you remember of it, or anything of the day when we were in the drill hall?
Yeah, I mean, it was a while ago,
Yeah.
but a few things stood out. We missed out on some input from some people who had to go before at lunchtime,
Yeah.
which was a shame because, as I recall, the structure was that the morning was spent learning about appreciative inquiry, and it was only the afternoon where we started making strides towards what we're going to do on engine test.
Yeah.
So I remember thinking it's a shame that I think some people who are very good could have contributed more if they'd been there for that section. I remember an urge to get stuck in during the morning. I was being a little impatient, I think.
Yeah.
But also appreciating that you need to learn this stuff. I think because our department encourages change. That's what we're there for, to fix problems and to prevent them happening again in the future. So we have a certain mindset, an optimistic mindset, if you like. And I remember some pessimistic comments coming out of this, So ultimately, the experiment was to get a person to make sure all the correct paperwork was in place before test. And people were saying, well, we haven't got the resource for this, and we can't do that, and who's going to authorise that?
Was this on the day? Sorry,
Yeah, this was on the day. This was that afternoon.
Yeah.
I remember saying at the time, look, everyone considers that their authority is limited in some way, but in real terms, we were talking about doing an experiment on 1 or 2 engines, and I think any department anywhere can spare people. You can get a person off ill for 2 weeks and you deal with it, you adapt. So why not use that same person for 2 weeks doing this experiment?
Yeah.
And ban them from being ill.
Just no one's
Keep the balance.
Right. Okay.
So when people were sort of being a bit, well, as I heard you say, being a bit kind of negative maybe towards the ability to kick off your experiment, how did that make you feel on the day? Because obviously it was kind of your baby in a way, wasn't it?
Yeah, I wasn't too bothered about the experiment that we'd volunteered for because I knew it was in my remit and I had the power to do something about it.
Right.
I was more frustrated that other experiments that we were looking at, which I could also see the value, I could see how that would improve things, in some cases make things better for us. I found it a little bit frustrating that people didn't have that same energy to, right, come on, we'll do the same. So with our project, not too bothered at all. I had a guy in mind who also has a lot of energy. I thought, yeah, he'd be perfect for the job. And we've just shifted some of his other projects around. But I think every manager has that authority to do things within the people they've got. And for doing an experiment, it's not a huge commitment.
Yeah. Did you find it easy to come to your experiment, or was it a struggle to think of what it is that you might do when we kind of invited at a certain point people to go away and think in small groups and have a discussion and think about what they might be able to shift? I guess, did you either bring into the meeting or decide early on in the meeting, actually I know what it is that I think I want to do, or was it quite difficult to come up with the experiment on the day?
The hardest bit was narrowing it down, to be honest.
Right.
I think there is so much scope for improvement, and it was a case of where can we make the biggest hit,
Right.
And this one stood out. So yeah, there were lots of ideas about.
Did you consider, when I think what I heard you say is so many opportunities for improvement. The difficulty was picking which one would you focus on and make your experiment about. Well, there was no difficulty in. There's a rich ground of opportunities. Which one do you go for? in that rich ground of opportunities, were there experiments that were of a different nature, that were less process tangible? Were there experiments about relationships or the way we work with each other? Or when you think back, was it really a selection of kind of tangible things we could do differently, or processes or forms or systems we could affect? Or was there any thinking around what about the relationships we have and the way we work together, the way we communicate with each other? What?
The ones that came to mind on that day
Yeah.
were certainly process driven, hardware driven things that would improve things. And indeed the one that we selected was process driven. But I think the one that we selected will also help with the relationships. You know, it's pointed out areas where there was no responsibility for doing a certain action, getting the engine from the test bay, from the assembly shop into the test bay. And sometimes it will be the guys in the assembly shop pushing, saying, no, we need the space, let's get this out. Sometimes it would be the test bay guys saying, we need this engine urgently, let's pull it in. But it wasn't anyone's responsibility. And if there wasn't a push or a pull, then the engine could sit around and paperwork wasn't getting done. And very quickly it becomes urgent, and suddenly we need this engine. And then, we haven't got this bit of paperwork, we haven't got this bit of hardware, what about it? And it becomes fraught and difficult. So I do think, although we've selected a process-driven thing, I think it will help people's working relationships by defining things a bit clearer and taking away some of that stress.
Okay.
Do you think you could say why, maybe on the day, the experiments that came out, or even were being talked about, not necessarily the ones being picked, but were more processy than relational?
Some of that will be to do with the nature of the people you've got in there. If you drag an engineer in, then although relationships are important, they're quite often not thought about by the likes of me necessarily. So probably largely that, and also perhaps it was largely manager based. So I think if you spoke to some of the test engineers, for example, or some of the guys directly in my department, and they're the ones who are actually interacting with the different departments. So I think if I'd have known more about the process and what was going to happen on that day, like I say, it was quite broad brush, then holding a small meeting beforehand saying, listen guys, what do you think? I think perhaps they might need to understand the appreciative inquiry method to really buy into it, because people's natural reaction is to fix that problem, isn't it? Rather than get into this utopia.
I think
so it would be good to get their buy-in. I think then you might see more relationship-based ideas.
So I think, just to summarise, I think what I heard you say there in the last couple of minutes was that we had both technically orientated people in the room, as in we had a lot of engineers, and we had a lot of managers. And if we'd have had maybe more frontline guys who get things done every day through working with other people and working across maybe some departments, they maybe would be more open or more aware of opportunities for relationship-based experiments, whereas managers possibly are less focused across the organisation. Would that be fair to think?
Not necessarily less focused, more process-driven.
Right.
I guess, and because they use those processes, I'm also aware that when I was going through the system, you need to get a job done, and I came through apprenticeship, so quite often I would go and speak to my mate who's an apprentice in another department and say, I need to get my hands on this part, how do I do that? And so that's more using relationships than processes.
Yeah.
But I think as you get further up the chain, it's like, well, no, this is the process. Let's follow this.
Right.
Don't get in trouble.
Yeah.
So that might be why you see that.
Okay. Good. So then, I'm just conscious of time, and we've got to, I guess,
All right.
still on the day. Following the day itself, you took away your experiment, and you kind of had to go at doing something. Can you talk us through what you did, what it was like, what you experienced?
Yeah, sure. There was first of all, we've got an intern who was made responsible for making this happen. As I said before, he's got a lot of energy, a lot of drive, a lot of new ideas. And I actually went to him with a suggestion, which was deliberately quite broad, about having the right documentation in place before the engine gets on test. Now that's particularly important to our department, because if there is an issue on test, then we have to support them, and we then use that documentation to fix the engine or fine tune the engine. And if that documentation isn't there, then we have to waste our time doing someone else's job and finding that documentation. And quite often the perception is, oh, we're still waiting for this department to give us an answer. So within the department, there was a big personal drive, if you like, to get this done. The benefit was largely for us. So everyone was on side with it straight away. So I spoke to the intern, then we spoke about it in our debrief and spoke about what we would want him to put in this.
Yep.
But he's, I think, 20, 21 years old. And he said, yeah, okay. Well, I'm sure you can do it better than that. So he took the ideas, took the skeleton, and then he's used all sorts of fancy software to come up with a checklist, and it became more than just a checklist. So he's added features such as people electronically sign it.
Right.
So they have to do it using their Siemens card, so it can't be signed off by anyone else. And it also timestamps it. So you could start to build up a picture of where the delays were. And also, once someone had signed off their action, it would automatically generate an email to go to the next person's action.
Right.
So rather than someone like the test bay manager having to go around and chase through, and we spoke earlier about the relationships, you know, he'd have to lean on people saying, oh, I really need this, or I really need that, or why haven't you done this? This eliminates that, the work and the element of stress as well.
Right.
So just go to the next person, go to the next person. So he put this together, and everyone said, oh, this is a fantastic job. All this modern stuff is incredible. But as far as Jan was concerned, he said, well, this stuff's well old. This is like technology from 2010. He said, I could do so much more, So I think it was good to get a young guy on it, and he really drove it. And then we had several meetings along the way with all the right people, so the test engineers, and they were also pessimistic. I think perhaps they've seen different initiatives in the past that have fallen over.
Right. And these meetings were to kind of introduce this system and explain it, and
so it started off with our own department contributing to what we thought needed to be in there.
Right.
Then the first draft went out. What else needs to go in there?
Okay.
And obviously from the other side of the fence, there was quite a bit of extra stuff that needed to go in.
Okay. So actually, kind of in the design of the system, you got the other departments to feed in their ideas and needs or suggestions.
Yeah, there were several different half-finished checklists in existence, and
Right.
well, how do you know what needs to go on test? And so I pulled all those bits of paperwork together and spoke to people. But then it kept having meetings saying, okay, here's the next draft. What do you think of this?
Right. And was it easy to have those? Were other departments open, receptive, say, oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Come, we'll find time to meet and.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there were. I think, you know, we have, like I say, we have different initiatives, and this one just seemed to have a little bit more drive about it.
Right.
So people were buying into it.
And why do you think there was more drive? What made?
Quite probably Adrian being new to it, and I don't know him especially well, but I think he's got he has a reputation for this. So he encouraged his engineers to go along to this.
So did you feel like, maybe even though it was you and your department, your team that were going to ask him for these meetings, Adrian was somehow in the background supporting this type of thing, and that helped?
Certainly from the attendance we got at these meetings, then I think he must have been driving it. I'm not aware of it personally, but certainly we've had a better attendance for this than we have for anything else.
Okay.
So the engineers were there, and they've seen these initiatives before, and they were very pessimistic.
Right.
And we did have one question, which was, they're just used to people doing it this way, and the paperwork not being there. It's been that way for as long as they can remember, and they've done that job for a very long time.
So when you say the engineers, you're kind of talking about the consumers of this system at the end. They were saying, we're pessimistic that you'll actually achieve what it is that you're trying to do, and we'll still be our world won't change very much at the end when we go to test the engine.
Yeah, and that's not just my interpretation. You know, that's almost what's come out of their mouth. But there was one example of one of the engineers said, right, so you're telling me the next SGT 400 that we put on test, if they haven't put the combustion flow figures on, you're just going to tell them no, we're not having that engine. I said, yeah, that's exactly what we're saying, and everyone bought into it at that point. And that was quite a good feeling, being able to say, right, we're doing this. This is a line in the ground. You shall not pass. And then I went on holiday for a week, and I came back, and they had taken the engine without getting all the right paperwork in place, which was terrible, really, really terrible. It's not a really good holiday, you know. But after having said to the test engineers, right, we're going to back you on this, for it then not to happen, for those guys must have felt like an enormous letdown. Very much, here we go again.
And did they say that to you, or did you speak to them about it when you got back?
They didn't say that to me, but I put an email out to all the test engineers and the people involved in this project and said, look, we've let the test engineers down. I'm sure I can find a copy of this email. We've let them down, we've let ourselves down. We said we were doing this. Everyone knows this is a good thing that we're trying to do, and it can only help us. So why haven't we done it? We're going to be under pressure for a few engines, but if we really want this to happen on a regular basis, we need to make it happen. And this must happen on the next engine. Let's do it again and do it right. And then I got emails from the test engineers, varying from very well said, this has been really frustrating, to stuff that I couldn't repeat.
Right.
You know, and they felt really strongly about it, and we really had let them down. But I spoke with everyone about, okay, how's this happened? And reaction was a little bit, we should have just carried on and done it as we said we were going to do it.
Why do you think they didn't? I mean, I know you weren't there and everything, but what would be your feeling about why they didn't stick with what they agreed to?
Because it's what we've always done. We've always managed to get stuff through and get it on to test and meet somebody's deadline somewhere. So the email that I sent out saying that we've let the engineers down also went up to the levels above as well, because those are the people who are putting the pressure on. So look, we need to do this. This will help you in the future, in the very near future. because if this is proved to be right, then it's relatively easy to implement.
Yeah.
So please don't put pressure on the test bay to accept this engine without the right paperwork. It needs the right paperwork. That's, in effect, the process already exists. It usually gets bypassed to put things on test to meet a deadline. But what we found when we went through the first iteration was there was actually a week-long gap where nothing happened, and that's what the timestamps were able to tell you. So if you'd have got someone pushing at this point, then you would not have had the issue. The engine would have gone on test and everything would have been seamless. And to be fair, everyone bought into it. And the test guy said, right, they gave me the next gas turbine and said, right, okay, we're doing this and we will support it.
Yeah.
And they did. And it was, you could see people going, wow, this actually happened.
Yeah.
Which was great. Which was great. And then indeed we did have to look at some things on test. And I said to my engineers, was all the paperwork there? Yeah, I found it straight away.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily mean that an engine on test won't have some issues, but it means you don't have downtime doing work that should have been done up front.
All right. So that's essentially the new way of doing things now, is it?
Yeah. Jan's just finished the last version, so there were some software glitches that he's ironed out. We have two businesses supplying engines to test, the new business and the overhaul business, the service business. And the service business are also going to be using the same paperwork. And we spoke earlier about having the authority to get people in to do stuff. And in this case, I didn't have that authority to get a full-time person in to do this job.
Yeah.
But I was able to get an intern on it temporarily. And the 2 weeks turned into 8 weeks. Because we could see it had legs and it was really snowballing and gathering momentum. But I understand now that Adrian has now employed someone to do that very job.
All right.
So by showing that it works, it comes to someone in authority who can do that, and they've now got someone signed up. I think he started this week. So.
All right. Good. I'm conscious of time, and I'm interested to kind of ask you a question about what do you think your learning was through this experience? We've kind of talked through now, and there's a lot of, I think you've told a really interesting, powerful story, but I can come up with all sorts of assumptions about what could be learned, but I'd be really interested to, if you reflect now back, I think, what were the things that you think that you know now that potentially you didn't know back in November or December, or that you have learned through this process about what it takes to change something?
I think the appreciative inquiry is more in line with my mindset anyway.
Right.
But it gave a power to do something that we haven't had before, because the normal way of doing things is, okay, this is wrong. How do we fix it? And what typically happens here is you have to provide lots of data to prove how many days of downtime you're going to save. And for something like this, that's very difficult to do, because it's just been something that's accepted. And that would have been difficult to quantify, and I would have had to get someone on that for a long time to pull that data in, and you'd find out that the logbooks didn't necessarily tally, and it would have been an awful mess. But this gave the authority to say, okay, everyone in their head can see this can only help things. We don't know by how much, we can't quantify it, but let's just do it and find out. And that was really refreshing, that you could just say, yeah, let's do it, let's give it a go. And with everyone buying into that, and whether it's because it's under an official banner of appreciative inquiry, or whatever it is, or whether it was Adrian's input saying, no, we're going to support this, it was really refreshing to see, especially the pessimists as well, who are kind of forced on board at the beginning, if you like, to see their reaction as something positive happens, and then they add to it and start pushing it. I was surprised at how quickly people turned and supported it.
Right.
That was a real positive.
What do you think were the ingredients that enabled the change to take place? So one is the kind of the framework of appreciative inquiry being kind of a different approach to the normal kind of analyze to death something before you try anything. So try something really quick and then see what happens.
Yeah.
Besides the framework that was applied, what was particular around your experiment that made your experiment one where actually something happened and we were able to learn from?
It's from the top end and the bottom end have really contributed to it. So Adrian coming in and being very open-minded about, okay, we need to make this better.
Yeah.
Don't necessarily fully understand the process myself yet, but how can we make it better?
Yeah.
And just that open mind at the top, that's what kicks everything off and gets the ball rolling.
Yeah.
And then picking the right guy to do the job. Like I say, he's an intern, and I think many people would say, well, has he got the authority to do this? But he's a confident young man, and he's really cracked on. And also because he was new as well, he perhaps wasn't tarnished by, oh, this is how we always do it. That's one of the most annoying things I hear, is this is how we always do it. And he just came in fresh and said, no, this is... So he was also naturally aligned to the appreciative inquiry, I guess, because he hadn't had his opinion skewed by what's gone on for years and years. So open mind at the top, a lot of drive from the guy doing the work. I'll let him get on with it.
I think I've heard a lot about, Adrian and Jan, is it?
That's right.
The people surrounding that. But I suppose, in conscious of time, but I'm interested in you. What in reflection from going through the process, both on the day and then following it through and doing the experiment, what do you think it took from you? What made your experience and what you did different?
It's something that I don't think is special at all, but we talk about creating a paradigm shift and that sort of thing. To me, a lot of that should be common sense, almost. So that's the first. Everyone knows this is wrong, and just being able to say to people, "No, come on, let's not just accept this over and over again." And the other is when you're faced with that pessimism of just going, "No, let's do it." And just be a bit open-minded about it. So I don't consider that to be anything magical at all, but just let's give it a go. And I'm not sure how many people have that.
Yeah. Well, and I think what I'm hearing you say is that when the predominant narrative is maybe a negative one or things can't be changed, you are someone with the ability to say, well, actually, I'm prepared to challenge that and say, I think it maybe can be changed. And while that sounds simple, actually stepping out and being different from what the common approach is or what generally gets said is quite difficult for most people, I think. So.
Yeah, it's maybe not just that here's a chance to change something. Enjoy that. Especially when people say, oh, I can't do that. It's just a little, come on, let's...
Challenge.
Yeah, let's do it. It's good fun. It's good fun, genuinely.
Okay, good. I know Adrian's waiting outside, so maybe we should wrap it. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks very much. It was really good. Yeah, really good to talk. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
All right.
I'll show you the video.
Yeah.
Don't. You're going to look back at it and cringe. You're going to work out, think, do I do that? Oh no. Let me give him a shout.
Thanks.
Pleasure. Bear with me.
Thanks, Joe. the camera.